Previously, an extra-normal high school student Minoru Kagino, who has a hidden life as a thug slayer and dreams of becoming so powerful to be able to withstand a nuclear attack. Someday he got hit by truck and died instantly. Then he got reincarnated as Sid Kaganu in an alternate world with magic capabilities. Following his past life streams, he trains himself and became overpowered in his young age. With his strength, he establishes a shadow organization by mistake, but he is interested in living as a very background character. After Nelson changes his form and appears out of the water despite his injuries, he takes some members of the Shadow Garden closer to the sanctuary's center. Meanwhile, a few of the members are left behind and are then led by Epsilon. Nelson tells others that their magical powers are not as effective, while the closer he gets to the sanctuary's center, the more powerful he becomes. However, this does not dissuade Delta, who enabled the beast mode. She does not think twice before leaping towards Nelson, who has now made multiple copies of himself to surround the Shadow Garden. She is too quick for the Archbishop and easily manages to cut most of his copies in just a few seconds. Nelson is shocked by her quick reactions and is unable to comprehend how she is so powerful despite being so close to the center. After a lot of struggle, Delta manages to manifest a legendary iron slab. When she attacks Nelson with it, they return to exactly where they started when they arrived in the sanctuary. However, Nelson suddenly recalls that he still has Olivier and decides to summon her. On the other hand, all this time, the Shadow Garden team led by Epsilon has been investigating the sanctuary. They had stumbled upon a few secrets, and after ensuring that they have documented them, the group reunites with the Shadow Garden, who has been fighting Nelson. Elsewhere in the sanctuary, Aurora and Sid end up in the memory of a battlefield, where they find a younger Aurora crying. The duo is suddenly attacked by zombies, and without magical powers, Aurora cannot do much, so Sid fights them on his own. When he realizes that the only way to stop the endless battle is to kill the younger version of Aurora, whose memory they are probably in, Sid cuts her. This sends the two of them directly to the sanctuary's center, which they cannot escape until a true descendant helps them by drawing the sword and opening the gate in front of them to destroy the core. After realizing that they won't be able to walk out of the sanctuary without meeting a direct descendant, Sid and Aurora decide to sit and wait for their savior to come. Meanwhile, the Shadow Garden leaves the sanctuary after completing its investigation.
Delta, 行くわよ。Delta.
When Nelson realizes that someone has reached the center of the sanctuary, he takes Olivier with him to fight the intruders. There he finds Sid and Aurora, realizing that the latter has been freed from her captivity. Olivier arrives there soon as well, and Sid decides to fight her despite his inability to use magical powers. Unfortunately, she seems too overpowering and easily able to toss Sid around as she likes. Aurora starts feeling worried about his life after he gets stabbed in his shoulder. Meanwhile, Nelson is also growing confident of victory, as Olivier seems invincible. Sid has realized by this point that his opponent does not seem to have a heart, but fearing for his life, Aurora decides to ask him not to fight anymore. When Nelson reassures her that he will spare his life on the condition that Aurora agrees to cooperate with their work, she immediately says yes, hoping that this will save Sid at least. Meanwhile, Sid feels offended that everyone has assumed that he will lose the fight with Olivier. He resumes the battle only to be stabbed by Olivier, who is too quick for him. Aurora's expression changes immediately, as if she feels that there is no chance that Sid will survive such injuries. Nelson also looks very confident. Interestingly, after a momentary reaction that implies that he is hurt, Sid's expression changes for some reason. He starts smiling and says, It turns out that Sid has allowed the attack to happen as he protected his vitals from being impaled, and once he has closed the distance with his enemy, the leader of the Shadow Garden kills her with a little kiss on the neck like a nice zombie. But Nelson is not done yet, and he summons an army of Olivier using the immense powers hidden in the sanctuary. Being surrounded does not appear to deter Sid in the slightest, and he reveals that he has found a way to use magic in the sanctuary's center, by tempering his magic to be more solid so it would be hard to be absorbed. He thinks that it's very simple, but it proves to be hard to comprehend by Aurora and Nelson. This shocked the Archbishop, who has expected to defeat Sid this time. The leader of the Shadow Garden turns out to be too powerful and ends the battle using a full-range atomic attack.
Atomic.
Once he wakes up outside the sanctuary, Sid finds Aurora near him, whose body is slowly beginning to disappear. Before she completely vanishes, she tries to ask him to do something when he meets her real self, but we could not hear the request. Meanwhile, Alexia convinces Rose and Natsumi to start a secret organization of their own to investigate the cult and Shadow Garden. Meanwhile, Alpha tells Epsilon that Aurora, the Witch of Calamity, was known by one more name, which is the Demon Diablos. Elsewhere, Gamma meets a real estate agent to buy a new property in the city of Madrid. As the director of the Mitsugoshi Company, she eventually agrees to invest generously in a massive redevelopment process that is going to change the town. Later, when Alpha watches the members of Shadow Garden busy with work, she recalls how she built the entire team with the help of Sid and seems to appreciate the fact that they have come very far. Iris meets Alexia in a sauna to discuss the recent developments and their plan going forward. By this time, they are confident of the fact that Nelson, who became the acting archbishop following the murder of the predecessor, is not only a member of the Order of Diabolos, but was also involved in the heinous crime. Unfortunately, that's all the sisters know as of now, and it is impossible for them to return to the sanctuary to investigate. Iris argues that keeping such a huge facility a secret means that the organization pulling the strings must have a huge influence. Since fighting them on her own obviously seemed like a hopeless move on her part, Iris even told her father everything she knew. But she was told to not make a move, especially with the upcoming visit of King Oriana in mind. This means that the sisters need some incriminating evidence to get their voices heard and taken more seriously. With that out of the option, Iris feels that the only way to be taken more seriously is to win the Bushin Festival again this year and gain the trust and support of Night Order. By winning the international tournament, she hopes to get the attention of His Majesty and his entire council. But there is still the danger that the cult and Shadow Garden will make a move by then. However, Iris is confident that this is the path she must walk, and even if either of the two shady organizations shows up at Bushin Festival, she has no option but to put herself on the line and defeat them. Now that the Crimson Knights have lost its strongest soldiers under her watch, Iris feels guilty, and the Night Order naturally does not have much faith in her, since their best knights were killed after they joined her military organization. Now the only way the first princess of the Midgar Kingdom can face the cult and Shadow Garden is by slowly gaining the trust of her own people, and winning at the Bushin Festival is a critical step towards it. Meanwhile, Princess Rose Oriana is training with her sword while recalling how much Shadow's fencing was perfect. Apparently she met Shadow at a young age before he started Shadow Garden. Suddenly, a strange mark on her chest appeared, which looks like trouble. And that's the end of the video. Please tell me your opinion and like the video. Take care and stay tuned for more videos.